Good evening. Thank you for joining us. It has been a year since the Hathras case, a case that we all remember, hopefully with great detail. This happened on the 14th of September last year when a 19-year-old Dalit woman was gang raped in Uttar Pradesh in Hathras. She died soon after. There were 4 Thakur men who were arrested. The trial is ongoing, but it has been a year, and it's important to ask questions of how that trial is going and whether justice has been served, given the fact that the media glare has obviously gone off the case largely. We're fortunate to have journalists who continue to track and follow up on these matters. Nidhi, Suresh, journalist with News Laundry, has in fact gone back to that village, spoken with the family, spent time with them, understood what they are going through, and understood the disadvantages really that members of oppressed caste face when dealing with the legal system. That's what we're talking about today, an update on what happened in the Hathras case. Joining us also will be Ms. Karuna, who is an advocate for the Supreme Court, Cynthia Stephen, who is an activist, a writer, and a social policy researcher, and Ranjana Kumari, the director of the Center for Social Research, as well as the chairperson of Women Power Connect. Now, before I go to my other guests, I first want to bring in Nidhi, Suresh. Nidhi, I want to first thank you for following up on this story and for the work that you do. For people who want to see her full report, do take a look at it. It's on the News Laundry website. But Nidhi, could you tell us what you discovered when you went back to meet the family in Hathras?
So I have been going back to meet the family, I think every 5 to 6 weeks at least. So I was there this morning as well. And to just start from today, the village has grown increasingly quiet over the last few months. There's a lot of tension in the village. As soon as you enter, you can see that people don't want to speak to the media anymore. Now it's also like most villages in India, severely divided by caste. There's a Brahmin lane, there's a Thakur lane, there's 4 Valmiki families living on the edge of the village. If you walk into the Brahmin and Thakur lane, they really don't want to talk to you. They tell you that there was no rape that happened here. Like a lot of times I've spoken to young girls from who are Brahmins and Thakurs and tried to ask them what they sort of feel about this incident. Do they feel safe in the village? How do they perceive what happened? So most of the time the response I receive is that there was no rape, there's nothing to be afraid of, and this is an honor killing. Somehow it seems more acceptable and easier to digest that this was an honor killing than a gang rape and murder. And when I speak to the Dalit families and the Valmiki families that live on the edge of the village, there's a lot of fear that they have. So actually today I spoke to a young girl who said that now the Thakurs are so angry with them with what's happened to the village, with how they are being perceived, that a lot of times the Dalit girls get eve teased even more aggressively. And she told it to me quietly, saying that she didn't even want to tell her family because that would mean that she then will be stopped from going to school or will be stopped from going outside. And that would be the solution then for her to be safe, will be to not go out. Now, to speak about how it's important, and we've said this in our reports multiple times, that it's so important to understand the landscape in which this crime took place. The victim and the accused family still live as opposites to each other. They live as neighbors. And there's close to 35 to 40 CRPF personnel manning this one tiny road between the two families for the last 12 months. And there's 8 CCTV cameras in the house. In the victim's house, there's 2 metal detectors. If they want to go out to buy vegetables, they have to go in a CRPF vehicle or the CRPF brings it to them. The last few times I went, the brother started joking about how he's looking at YouTube and learning to cut hair and learning to, they got to the barber shop and they have to, or the CRPF has to bring a barber to the house. They also have 3 young girls. The victim has 3 nieces who are the age of 5, 3, and one of them just turned 1-year-old last week. And they're growing up in the backdrop of this incident. They cannot go out to meet other kids of their own age. And they've sort of grown used to growing up around these 40 CRPF personnel. The toilet of the house is a little outside. So a lot of the times when the women in the house want to use the toilet, it means walking across these men. And if it's late at night, then they're uncomfortable. So there's a lot of things. I mean, it's a double-edged sword for them because they do feel they need the protection. They do feel threatened in the village. But they also don't want to continuously live like this. They've had to sell off their land. They've had to give away their animals because they are unable to work anymore. The men in the house, they just are living from one court date to another. But their resolve to fight the case seems to be very strong, more than ever now. Now they're like, there's really nothing to lose, so we want to keep fighting the case. That's the sort of overarching situation in the village now.
Nidhi, I'll come back to you. Let me just bring in the other guests as well. I have Ms. Karuna, Nundy. Ms. Nundy, this is the unfortunate reality of what this family is dealing with. It has completely changed their way of life. They're unable to work. They're unable to, go to the market and buy food. They're unable to live normal lives. It's sort of an example of how our legal system is playing out. Is there here an infringement on their fundamental rights in the name of security?
I think the way I see it, based just merely on what Nidhi has just said, is that this is the best that courts could do in terms of a witness protection program because they've got a central force there, right?
Yeah,
I think the problem is a little bit different. The problem is that why do they feel so threatened? Why does the family of a young girl who was raped feel so threatened? Why is there this potential sense of impunity, right? Like, why do they have to be corralled and placed in one place rather? And why does everyone, why is there this sense that there are assaulters, whether sexual or otherwise, roaming outside of that corral? Why are they free? And I think the answer comes from the reaction of the state of Uttar Pradesh. And the state of Uttar Pradesh saying initially that there was no rape, for example, right? There was no rape. And the fact that the one reporter who went down there is still in jail, right? Siddiq Kapan is still in jail for nothing. I think that is where the questions lie, because what's happening here is that you have effectively, and I think the question that you're asking is therefore largely then correct, right? Which is that you then have, for their own safety, and I really do think this is the best the courts could do, right? You have a central force then protecting them and keeping them in their own homes. And as Nidhi quite rightly pointed out here, in this case, very vividly, when you are speaking of protection and not freedom, this is the result you get. Because then you have the rapists, the assaulters, the castists roaming around free outside with impunity.
I want to bring in Cynthia Stephen right now. Cynthia, the other things that Nidhi told us very importantly, how the other people in the village are dealing with this, that this is really just honor killing, it's not just really rape, it's effectively not something that will happen to them. And I think that somehow when it comes to rape in our country, that becomes a really important aspect, right? People just think that this won't happen to me. It only happens to a certain group of people. Do you see that in some way also in the way the law enforcement is dealing with it, in the way the CRPF will be dealing with the family on the ground? Because it's one thing for the court to order protection, but this family is dealing with the 40 men who are standing outside their hut. Cynthia.
Exactly. Now, I was just reflecting on this, on the fact that in our system, it's always the victims who get doubly, triply victimized at all times. And the victims are, by definition, the ones who are disempowered by the system, and because the system just doesn't take their concerns on board. This is one thing. And so the caste aspects will have to also look at the way in which the community is looking at it, and that is the girl just said, the reporter just said that she finds that they're saying, the girls are saying there was no rape, and it was an honor killing. And I don't know what's different between it's as heinous a crime as that. Why should it be worse to be killed in terms of honor? Why is it okay for the girls to say that? That is one. And the other, even more importantly, is I remember the fact that they had a Kham Panchayat in the village, and I remember one man, old man, standing there assertively with his rod or stick or whatever they call it, staff, and banging it on the ground and saying, "Hamare ladke balatkari nahi hai." So in other words, the community don't want to permit the rule of law. I mean, they don't want the law to take their course. Basically, they want the rule of the jungle to continue to operate. And this is the main thing. Then I'd like, if I may say
Yes.
so, that to make another very important point. I've been preparing for this. I was also looking at another case that has happened recently. That is the Rabia or the Sadia case, the girl who was raped and killed another. And the police have brought a man who claims that she was the wife, that there was a love triangle involved. In all this, the role of the state machinery, to wit the lower level judiciary and the police, are deeply problematic. In all these cases, the police have, even in the other case, the case of the little girl in Kashmir who was killed, the police were deeply complicit in the suppression of evidence, apart from being part of the crime. So I think this is the point I want to do, that state actors continue. I mean, the impunity is not only to the perpetrators who are in the community. The impunity flows from out of the way the state's actors use their powers against the victim.
In fact, I want to take this question back to Nidhi, Suresh. Ranjana ji, I'll come to you in a minute. Nidhi, Suresh, there were 5 police officers who were suspended. These were the ones who were guilty of cremating the body without, we should actually call it burning. They didn't cremate. They burned the body without the permission of the family in the middle of the night when they locked the family inside their room. What happened to those 5 suspended officers? Have they been, has there been any proceeding against them, or have they been reinstated? Do we know?
Well, we know about one officer. We know that he's still under suspension, but there's also parallelly a police departmental inquiry that's happening. This is Officer Ramshabd, who, so in the CBI charge sheet, they've clearly said that when the police went to collect the statement from her when she was in the hospital, there was also someone from the police taking a videography of the statement being collected, and it was evident that he did not take down the fact that she had named all the 4 men. Like, he tried to tamper with her statement, and which is why eventually then he was suspended. So there was a police departmental inquiry in Meerut for which the family went, and they said the inquiry officer was not there. The complainant himself, Ramshabd, ended up taking down the statement against himself. And the brother told me that ultimately, I looked at him and I asked him, why did you not take down my sister's statement? And Ramshabd apparently folded his hands and said, "Maaf kar do, mujhe bawasi ho gaya tha." And I mean, the bizarreness of that, her own brother started laughing. He said, how am I supposed to come to terms with a man who's taking down the complaint against himself? One, the inquiry officer is absent, and I called the inquiry officer and I asked him, why were you not present at that police departmental inquiry? And he said, Ghaziabad mein 3 murder hue the. I didn't know which one to prioritize, and I had to just leave for that. And then a fresh appeal for a fresh departmental inquiry has now been made, and so the family will once again make that trip to Meerut and once again give their statement, because this is now counted as invalid because the person, the complainant, Ram Shabd himself took down the statement against himself. So that's one. The district magistrate, who we've seen videos of him sitting with the family in their courtyard when the incident had happened, and we saw him talk about how he asked them to calm down and not really speak to the media, and there was a threat in the way he said it. Now UP government had made it very clear to the Allahabad High Court that they will not be transferring him and they don't find him guilty of anything. But ultimately,
he was the one, Nidhi, who had said that ye sari media log chale jayenge, fir hum hi reh jayenge yahan.
Exactly. Yeah. This was said by multiple police officers. The video of him saying it came out very clearly in the media. And he's now the DM at Mirzapur. So nothing really has happened to him. The court, of course, has, to the credit of the Lucknow bench at the Allahabad High Court, they have asked strong questions of them. They made sure that he was transferred, but he's not suspended. He's not terminated from his position. He continues to work. Which is surprising, given that there's such clear evidence of him making those statements against the family, which also affected the narrative in the village. There's a couple of things that really strongly affected the narrative. One is the fact that the accused wrote a letter from inside the prison saying that the prime accused Sandeep said that he was in a love affair and this is an honor killing. So a lot of the villagers refer to that letter and say, see, he himself said that he was in an affair with her. So that's evidence enough. This is not rape. The other thing is that the ADG of Lucknow in UP went ahead and said that there was no semen, so there was no rape, which also seems to have really influenced. Like, I spoke to a couple of doctors who had gone for questioning when the CBI was investigating, and they also said that the fact that that statement was made really affected the narrative again, and people refused to believe this was a rape, except that the forensics was sent 11 days after. The rape examination was conducted 8 days after, by which time she had changed, she had washed herself, so there wasn't much. But the gynecologist had clearly opined that it seems like there is force that has been applied on this woman, and it's needed, further investigation is needed. So these couple of things have really affected the narrative and made people believe that this is not a case of rape. And the family has also been asking for the case to get transferred out of Uttar Pradesh, which hasn't happened in the last 1 year.
Nidhi, I'll come back to you for more details. I just want to bring in Ranjana Kumari here. Ranjana ji, it boils down at the end of the day, and this is the unfortunate part, our viewers must know, that not only is this family dealing with the trauma of what they went through, the loss of a loved one, but they have to find the strength to keep fighting the case, because the case will only move forward on their personal sort of hardship. If the family stops or decides to give up, that's it. No one in establishment is going to follow that case on their own. Ranjana ji, why is it so difficult in a country like India with so much media glare on this one particular case to have lawyers come in pro bono, to have NGOs come in pro bono and aid this family in what they're going through? What needs to be done here?
You see, I think eventually what is the story, which is common thread in the story, is that the victim's family pays the price for it. You know, in the name of protection, if you have 35 men sitting around the house and they're supposed to protect the family, because rest of the village is now very angry and there can be any flare up can happen, and they're all upper caste. I think also the role of the other actors you don't see in this whole thing. One, I would like to know where the case in terms of hearing is in the court, because if it is 7 years or 8 years down the line, then how long will this protection force be sitting in the village and trying to give protection to the family? So that's one question, that, are they really on day-to-day basis hearing the case and trying to dispose it off as fast as they can, so that there is some kind of a conclusion, there is some kind of a justice that has been delivered? Because that's the casualty. When such cases, start, police itself Then the forensics itself tried to botch up the case, by saying that there was no semen, there was no rape. And that's where it started. So how much evidence has police been able to collect, and what kind of really, when they have filed the report, what kind of a position police has taken is very important. So that's one thing that, somebody tracking all this should know where the case is and how long will this case go on, so that how long this protection force will be needed. Number two, the other actors, as I'm saying, within the police, you talked about all the confusion. They've been suspended. They themselves are dealing with their own cases. And then also that magistrate is going and serving somewhere else. Now, from the very beginning, we have been saying that, look, you really have to constitute a special police force, which is really dealing with violence against women cases, train them differently, try to, so that they also understand that this is injustice to women, this is a crime against women, and this crime needs to be addressed. But nothing of that sort happens. It's the same police who will go for gundai, dakati, theft, whatever. It's the same men who are sitting around. So I don't think we are really thinking of a kind of specialized agency, specialized police force. And within the bureaucracy also, when you have district magistrate, you can't be, how long can you suspend a district magistrate? So, there are these rules and regulations within the IS cadre and all that. You can't really mess with that much as a state also, even if they want to do it. So I think within that, we need to look at more deeper questions here. Now, let me come back to sociology of this whole issue. How the upper caste really continues to be the threat for this family. Now, what kind of a dialogue, relationship building, or bringing those families together and trying to make them understand that, look, this is something very wrong that has happened with the family has been wrong, and you cannot be treating them the way you are treating them at the moment, all the time threatening them. There must be some kind of a threat which is going on. So I think their role of, as you very rightly said, civil society organizations, political parties, workers, if some strong men of the political party stand there and say, look, you cannot do this, you cannot really go and bully this family, then certainly family will feel more protected, will feel more at ease, and you don't need to put 35 men all the time on their head. If you don't do that, then where is the victim protection? We all will ask this question. If those men are not there, then everybody is going to ask this question: where is the victim protection? Where is the family protection which has been given? And but then, if this family protection is there, certainly they are also the people who are believing in this, all these stories.
Ranjana ji, if the family is not allowed to go to work, it's a matter of time before they will say, we can't live like this anymore.
Exactly. Either they will have to migrate, they have to go to some other village and then, relocate them. If state is really willing to do that, help them out in terms of getting them employment so that people can go out of that village and start working somewhere. There are many other solutions that can be found. But in a way, state is also trying to punish them further, for having raised this issue.
Hey, can I just
putting these men and not letting them go anywhere, not let little children go anywhere to play, not letting them. So in a way, indirectly or directly, now there is a messaging also going on. That's the risk and the danger of such a situation. That if as a woman you will complain, and if you will go to this extent, and if media will come around like the way it came in Hathras case, then certainly you will have to be facing all these consequences. State will be sitting on your head in the name of protection. So, give them options, choices, give them more employment, let them go out of the village and start working somewhere, start getting their livelihood, respect their dignity and their life. That's what is needed, not somebody bullying you all the time. And not letting children
so Nidhi, I want to ask you about the cases and the status. There's one case I understand in the SC/ST court in Hathras district. There's one case in the Allahabad High Court under the Lucknow bench. There's a CBI charge sheet in the special CBI court as well. So what is the status of all of these different cases and what's happening legally on this case?
So the Allahabad High Court is looking into the case of the body burning. Right. Yes. And they are taking up the case of what the DM did and what the 5 officers did. Now, case hearings haven't happened as regularly because of COVID and because of the second wave. So we have an important hearing day after tomorrow on the 16th, where Seema Kushwaha, the family's lawyer, will be asking for a clear status of the case, she said. The last update we all had so far was the fact that the DM got transferred on December 31st to Mirzapur. The other case, the case of the gang rape and murder, is now happening at the district level, which Allahabad, the Lucknow bench, has taken suo motu cognizance of. So they also monitor what's happening at the district level. Now, at the district level, there have been almost 13 witnesses who have been cross-questioned. The prime witness, the PW1, which is her brother, was cross-questioned only recently. His cross-questioning will go on till the 23rd. But I also want to reiterate that they allege, and they've said very clearly, that they were intimidated in court on March 5th. So there was a hearing in court the first time the brother was going to give his statement of what exactly happened. When they went in, they said that lawyers who were not related to this particular case entered the courtroom and started intimidating him and Seema Kushwaha, the family's advocate. They also said they clearly smelt like they had had alcohol. And Seema Kushwaha then said that this shook the brother up so much that he still struggles to stand up in court or anywhere and really talk about anything. At this point, the judge then adjourned the hearing that day because the situation got a bit out of control.
This is district court.
This is at the district court.
Yes.
And they ordered protection for Seema Kushwaha. The UP police escorted her out of Hathras, and the security for the family was increased. Now, family also wanted it because they were intimidated in court. But that just meant that more security personnel, so that at that point, the ratio became one family member, 2 CRPF personnel. And then after that, they tried to ask, so Seema Kushwaha told me that she tried immediately to ask the district judge, PD Bharati, if she can file an immediate application stating that this is what's happened and she would want the CCTV footage of what happened in court. And then apparently he told her this happens sometimes, don't take it seriously, we'll have another hearing. Then they went to the Lucknow bench and filed an application there. They filed a petition. The brother filed a petition stating this happened, included the advocate's statement in the annexure saying that these are the things that happened. Lucknow bench took cognizance of it, and they said we want a status report filed in 15 days. The CRPF Inspector General and the Judge B.D. Bharti was in charge of filing that status report. But the 15 days passed, and then we had the second wave of the COVID pandemic. The courts shut. Finally, the status report was filed in August. So there was a hearing finally in August 27th, which is 4 months after the intimidation. And then the court decided that there wasn't, so the application was that the case happened now in trial. The brother demanded the case happen in camera, that they be provided more protection, that the CCTV footage be given to them so that they can also make their case for the fact that the case needs to be transferred because they're being intimidated. Seema Kushwaha, the advocate, told me that she was not given a copy of the CCTV footage. It was given to the amicus curiae, so I'm assuming she can also take a copy of it from the amicus curiae, but she was not given, and the court said they find no reason to transfer the case, so it will continue being heard at the Hathras court. They did order for an in-camera trial though, which as per my understanding should have been happening already because it's a case of rape. But now it's being strictly ordered that no one can enter the court premises and it has to happen only in camera.
Ms. Karuna Nundy, this is this is something like a kind of situation that most of us wouldn't be able to put up with, let alone this family, from this village. Are there any possible solutions? Anything that can be done to help them out? Because it has been a year, which is an extremely stressful year.
So it's a special court that's hearing the matter at the district level, and they seem to have proceeded quite fast, because if they're already at the stage of cross-examining the 7th witness for the prosecution, then that is actually quite fast. I mean, given the slowness of our legal system in general. In terms of the transfer, it appears to me that the same problem, I mean, in terms of the intimidation, it appears to me that the same problem is happening that we were speaking of before, which is that if there are people who storm into the courtroom drunk and intimidate the witnesses, they've already committed lots of crimes, right? And those are the people who must be punished, and an example must be made of those people, as opposed to giving more and more and more protection, though that at least is something. But really, those are the people who should be punished. And I think that's something that seems quite clear.
Right. So what you're saying effectively is that the number of people threatening this family physically at their home, outside their home, in court, it just keeps growing.
Yeah.
And instead of punishing the people who are threatening them, they're just adding more and more layers of cops,
Yeah.
which impedes their way
But
of life.
also, I think that we aren't speaking about the caste issue here enough. It is a gender issue, yes, but my feeling is that it is much, much, much more a caste issue, you know, and the kind of let it go that we hear across the board, including whether it's with the district magistrate, whether it's with these people who stormed in, whether it's with these young, the young upper caste women saying, basically the honor killing business means that ye to ghar ki baat hai, right? Ye to ghar ki baat hai, so don't interfere. And also an honor
to some
killing
extent,
implies
people will believe
she
it's
was at
because
fault. An honor killing is very important because an honor killing also implies that she was at fault because
In
she
some
had
way.
some sexual activity, right? And there are lots of studies of sentences in cases of rape, including notably one Yale study, which looked at cases in which single women were alleged to have prior sexual intercourse. And those are the cases in which there was the lowest sentence, right? If you were married and you were raped, then there was a slightly higher sentence. If you were single and you were a so-called chaste single girl, then there was the highest sentence.
And also, even in this case, the idea that, there was a relationship that was already on, that went wrong, and that's
Precisely.
why, these stories keep coming up, suggesting that in some way, even if it were true, that in some way that absolves or lessens the crime that has taken place, maybe stemming from the fact that in our country, we still think rape is about the honor of the woman and not the physical and mental trauma that she has been put through. Ranjana, Kumari, coming back to you about everything we've heard, you asked about the status of the case. What is your response to what we've heard so far?
Well, I still think, even if, as Karuna will understand it better, that it is still some speed that the case is going with. But eventually between being raped and between being killed because of honor killing, these are the two different scenarios. That in one, she's, there is a majority of the people are trying to push the idea, or I do not know what the investigation report finally comes up with, that this was two people in love, and this is what happened because the family got angry and they killed. So the whole onus of responsibility falls back on the family if it is an honor killing. Otherwise, if it is reported as rape and the whole report says that there is conclusive finding that there is rape, then certainly it is a caste issue that will become flare up in the village. That, the upper caste people who are in the village, and this is what Thakurs and Brahmins, and as you also saw while going for your reporting. I think the solution, as you were asking, is extremely important to look at two things. One is that what has been done in the village to create some kind of a conducive environment for family to live. Has there been any effort by anybody, for the family to really be accepted by the rest of the village and some kind of environment for family to live? If it is completely not there and people are so, there's animosity so much at the moment that by the time the case ends, they will try to attack the family, do something like, really destroying their property, their life. So in that scenario, what kind of a role will state play? This is very important. What kind of a role will state play? The other civil society will play. Other people who are also the actors in this whole thing should be the actors, should be the ones who are trying to look for the solution. It's not only how can family find any solution? Family has been totally isolated. In fact, they're getting further victimized. They're getting further isolated, and there is anger which is growing because police presence is not only protecting the family, but creating more and more anger in the village. And that is why you see that silence. That is why when you enter, you see that, there's stoic silence. Nobody wants to talk about it. And, people are really feeling that our village has been identified as something where all the boys and men are rapists. So, this has to be diluted. Efforts will have to be made. I would think that Yogi Adityanath himself will visit the village one time and try to kind of, create some kind of a dialogue. I would think that other political party, maybe Akhilesh Yadav, maybe Ms. Mayawati, somebody has to really intervene here for creating the dialogue. But who is this? Who do they think that rape really creates the kind of condition that this story is really? And I'm very grateful that this kind of a complication which is getting emerged, which kind of what do you call it? Within circle that we are seeing at the moment, and getting more and more complicated. So I think this is very important, that at this stage we should understand that let this message not go, that if you complain, you dare not ask for justice. That's the message at the moment.
In fact, I want to ask Cynthia this question. This was a story that came out in October last year. I'm reading out of India Today, where in Agra, effigies of Mayawati were burnt because of her silence on this particular case. And, this is a state that is now approaching an election that's coming up, which means that Ms. Mayawati has become active. Akhilesh Yadav will become active. They've all become active. They were deathly silenced from these people last year. Mayawati, oddly enough, has actually held with her party a Brahmin conclave. Not really reaching out to members of her own community, but attempting to reach out to members of other communities. So who will speak for the rights of the family of Hathras? If not her, who else, Cynthia?
See, here, I would like to actually, we all know that, once there is once a vulnerable family has been victimized, that the entire system conspires to further victimize them. I've already made that point.
Yes, we have.
Ask, what about the pressure on the perpetrators? Why is this all about the Dalit community, how they are coping, what is happening? Tell me what kind of impact this has had on the perpetrators community. They've all ganged up against they were the courts about it. I believe that I don't have any hope on any politician of any color going there and trying to. I don't see Yogi Adityanath. I do not use that word Yogi. Ajay Bish's administration. I don't see them, allowing anyone like Akhilesh Yadav or Priyanka Gandhi or Mayawati to even go 50 kilometers close to that village. I don't see that happening. It's highly unrealistic in the first case, in the first instance. And secondly, I want to just respond to something which Ranjana Kumari was saying, and I think it's very important we underline this, we flag this. She was pointing out that if any woman is assertive and asks for justice, she will be punished. This is not about a woman. This is about caste. And the women, it's the woman who is asking for justice. This is a family which is fighting for their daughter's a crime against the daughter, for justice for that daughter. Why is there no support from the civil society, from everyone else to this family? Do you remember what happened when Nirbhaya died? Do you know how many people came out on the street? Do you know what happened, how the society reacted when the Kailanji mob lynching took place? Why the media was totally silent about it and they had to got extremely violent? What is going on in our society? So there is a view in the society that, even people who are in activism and, even they are seeing it as a women's issue. No, it's not just a women's issue. There's, the claim that it's an honor killing. Honor is not something that Dalit women have, you see. They don't have honor. They are not human beings. They are subhuman creatures. They don't deserve justice. They are not just like cattle. They don't have any feelings. That is how this state treats, any claim of justice from, by the Dalits. I think this has to be clearly understood. And so I want to ask the perpetrator community, why are they not being, barricaded from moving around in the village? Why are the babies not allowed to play? Who is addressing, who is going and, running meeting the Khap Panchayat and saying they can't do this? Has anyone done that? Has anyone thought of doing it? Calling the Khap Panchayat, making them sit down and reading the Riot Act to them? Why is this about what the Dalits are doing or not doing or undergoing? Make them undergo a little bit of torture. When the Kailanji incident took place, the whole village ganged up against that poor woman and her 3 children and killed them so brutally. But what happened? A few guys went to the, were punished. And there was no charge of caste. They only said it was a land dispute. What happened in the case of the Kathua rape case? The whole community, came together and, supported the perpetrators. And we have publicly elected officials garlanding the perpetrators. What is going on in this society? How can this happen? Are we progressing into the 20th century? We're talking about space and this and that, but where is the perpetrator feeling the heat?
So I think, Faye, just a second, I just want to make a clarification. Nobody really considers this only, and knowing well the work that we do, or all of us do collectively. I don't think it is just a gender issue. And I think that is said in the very beginning, even Karuna stated that deep down it is a caste issue. And none of us are, we're totally in agreement with you. We're totally in agreement with you that it is not just a girl being raped, but it is, they punish the whole community by doing this. So I think let's not get into this misunderstanding, but let's see that how and who. And because Karuna, I think Faye's question was that what is the way out? What can be done for this family? And since it is a rape case, what is the way out is you suggested that let the whole perpetrators be confined, let them be, whichever. I mean, I totally support that. Let them not move around. Let their children not play. Let this, the family be free. But as long as these people to guard her, the family will be standing there, all these 35, who knows? I mean, police normally always stands by the upper caste people. They're already protecting the interest of the caste people. So please don't misunderstand this. Cynthia, please don't misunderstand this, that we are only treating it as, and Hathras from the very beginning. You go through all the statements that I have made and we have collectively made, is definitely that this is not just a case of rape, but it is certainly a case of where the caste, and all these cases of late have been where Dalit girls have been targeted, So I just wanted to clarify that please don't misunderstand. We are totally support what you are saying and totally with the view that you are expressing at the moment.
Let me just bring Nidhi in for one last question. Nidhi, have you spoken to any member of the family of the accused who have been arrested? They've been arrested now for nearly a year. Are they facing, this sort of, what are they facing right now? What are they saying to you? What is the family saying to you?
So I always meet them when I go there as well. The very first time we'd gone there, we spoke to both the families. We recorded video statements from both the families on what they think happened. Of course, the accused family believes that the men are innocent and that this is a false accusation. But now the anger has built up, right? So when I visit, they're very angry. Today, again, we made an attempt to go inside their house and really just have a conversation. And they also have this perception that with a lot of digital news organizations that their statements are not then seen on TV. So we're not really putting out what they're saying, because they're watching the TV and they feel like only the victim's side of the story is being covered. So we've tried multiple times to have a conversation and say, we also go to the court. So the accused family, I mean, in a way, I also feel the pain of the mothers of these men or the wives of these men. I mean, to be completely fair, there's also a lot of pain in what's happened, how their men are being, they're also losing some amount of acceptance, but largely there is a village that stands behind them. There is a village that believes in them. Everybody in that village will say, these men were from such good families, they're such good men, they're so innocent. I don't know why this is, they're being falsely accused of this. So that's the talk. They don't want to speak to the media because they are so angry with the media. They say, you journalists will make sure our men get hanged. Which again becomes a debate, right? Like, so when we're talking about justice in this case, is it capital punishment becomes the next question? Like, is then that our way of bringing justice is the next question? I also think that this is a story of a Dalit family that's fallen out of the news cycle. And in a way, it's also telling of what newsrooms think is news or not. Just to sort of digress for a moment there, but I found it shocking that today there was nobody there. There was no journalist there. There was nobody. And this is an incident we sort of made it seem like, you know, we've lost our minds over it last year. And I know that there is an information overload. I know that there is so much happening in our country that it's so hard to wake up and keep up with things. And I'm also like, I don't mean to go on a rant on like what journalism is and not, because I'm a young reporter, I'm starting out, but I do think that it's just that we're not interested in what happened after. So yes, an extraordinary violence took place, but this is also the story of a family that's fallen out of our news cycles. And we're not interested in that story anymore. We're not interested in talking about deep-seated sadness. There seems to be this need to constantly have to talk about how much worse this case was than the previous one. And I found it really shocking that there was nobody in the village today. There were no media.
This is unfortunately the reality of what we live in. I just want to illustrate to the audience and to the panel that we had an average of 100 to 134 people on this live today. Our average for other issues, if we were to talk politics, or if we were to talk elections, or if we were to talk about petrol prices, would be much, much higher. It's an indication of why mainstream media that is very desperate for its TRPs on a nightly basis then doesn't pick up stories that it believes will not get viewer interest. So it's a chicken and an egg situation there. And this, what we should also realize, and we've said this over and over again, that solutions for gender issues, for caste issues, and specifically for the intersection of gender and caste, when we're talking about women from oppressed castes, are complex, hard, and require a lot of work from different areas. It requires work in the media, it requires work in policing, it requires work in government from the bureaucrats, and it certainly requires political will. Nobody wants to do that. It's too hard. Everybody wants to do easy work that will win them the next election. Nobody wants to actually do the work that will make a difference on the ground, which is why 75 years after independence, we're still here, we're still having these same conversations. We're still looking desperate at the end of that conversation because there doesn't seem to be enough solutions, because the solutions seem too far away or would take too long. And unfortunately, we reconvene every time there is a terrible case like this and we have similar conversations over and over again. I will honestly, personally confess to you that it makes me feel hopeless. It makes me feel like my job makes no difference to anybody, that we're screaming in an empty room and nobody can hear us. I acknowledge over and over again that the terrible, terrible place to be is the intersection between caste and gender issues right now, specifically for Dalit women, for tribal women, whose rights are not even considered, whose stories are written by other people, whose narratives are set by other people, whose voices are suppressed by almost everybody around them. And that is a responsibility of each and every single one of us. Whatever it is you do for a living, there is a woman around you that you should be helping. And that's a non-negotiable. That's how we got to this point, because we didn't look around hard enough. I'm going to leave it there, but I want to thank again Nidhi Suresh for the work that she's doing. Do take a look at her work. Go to the News Laundry website. It's on the homepage, and support the work if you can. This is the kind of work that will make a difference in the long term in our country. Thank you for watching. Good night. At 9 o'clock today, instead of our regular news bulletin, we're putting out a whole story with all of the information that has come up right now about the children who are dying of dengue in Uttar Pradesh. Over 88 children have died of fever in Uttar Pradesh right now. Hospitals are running out of space. They're running out of platelets for blood transfusion. The situation is very dire. It has not received the media attention it deserved. Do take a look at that story as well. Thank you for watching.